the problems, the enemy is the way our lifestyles are. It may be our phones, it may be sitting and watching television, being a foodie, which is very fashionable, and the kind of lifestyles which we lead, stress, so on and so forth.
We have been using these drugs for 2 decades. Only thing is, there was some earlier generation of drugs. They did not have so much of weight loss. Now, current generation of drugs, they have tremendous weight loss potential.
What we need to bring attention that these high salt and high sugar items are unhealthy.
I'd like to pause a bit to talk about the terminology we've used, the Trojan horse. It carries a certain warlike imagery, and I think it's appropriate in a couple of senses. One, the kind of assault that NCDs have brought to India, and two, to indicate the kind of response the state must mount in order to handle the burden of NCDs. So as India battled pathogens for many years, it sought to reduce infant mortality and maternal mortality, and we are seeing the results of it, as the recent HDR report communicated. What happened was that these non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and respiratory diseases, but not confined only to these conditions, slipped under the radar. And they have grown to proportions that demand an urgent response from everybody in this country. So we can't look at it as a mere health issue. It's having a huge impact on the economy and the future health of the nation. Given the sheer volume of the problem, I don't want to spend too much time giving stats here. But as far as diabetes alone goes, in 2022, there were about 212 million cases, estimated 212 million cases in India. It's important for us at this juncture to address the questions of accessibility and affordability in both diagnostics and treatment, prevention, including primordial prevention, and financing future health programs. So our panel today has been chosen by design. We have Dr. Preetha Reddy, who will represent the larger private health sector, and they have been at the vanguard of several health initiatives. She will share with us that experience. We also have a very senior public health consultant who will share with us the experience that comes from that sphere, and a practicing diabetologist, a clinician, and a researcher at the cutting edge of diabetes research today. I'll start with you, Dr. Preetha Reddy. Apollo has been at the forefront, like I said, at the vanguard of NCD prevention, particularly for the last 40 years. Dr. Preetha Reddy brings up the question of NCDs and the need to prevent them. You also have a very robust sort of database from your patients across the country. Are there any signs that you see in the last decade or two that indicate this problem has been growing tremendously?
So thank you, Ramya. We have been talking about prevention, about screening and intervention consistently for the past 40 years. And I think your naming it the Trojan horse is probably very apt. And to me, the Trojan horse could be there. And the problems, the enemy is the way our lifestyles are. It may be our phones, it may be sitting and watching television, being a foodie, which is very fashionable, and the kind of lifestyles which we lead, stress, so on and so forth. So we have seen, and this is from the private sector space, we started off by saying, a 1 million screening target would be great, and we did that immediately post-COVID. Today, we're heading towards almost 6.5 million in terms of people who we screen. And in that, we're seeing the incidence, so we're able to pick it up early, whether it's, diabetes, cardiac disease among youngsters, cancer, of course. But what is worrying and where we need to think about and interventions, which is possible, is mental health and obesity. And the stats on obesity we have that, between the age of 5 to 14, the incidence of obesity has gone up by 30%. Between 15 and 24, and these are youngsters, these are adolescents, a 48% increase in obesity. So I think sometimes it's good for us to start with easy interventions, and I think this is easy because you can't screen, the health is a very, between the state, it's a state subject, it is a central budget given to the states, there's a state responsibility. And then private sector comes in and says, we have to do this, not because, we want to be a good citizen. We really want to keep people out of hospital beds. And I think that has been the intent of Dr. Reddy's, to keep them well. So we're seeing increase in cardiac, we're seeing increase in diabetes, and Dr. Anoop is probably the doyen of that, he will tell us. But we're seeing increase in mental health and in obesity, which I think we can intervene, which we can do. So this is what we are seeing from a private sector space, and a very clear agenda is to keep people out of hospitals, even though I represent hospitals.
Right. So I'll come to you, Dr. Anoop. So what has really excited the world, I mean this is globally, whether you have diabetes or not, or whether you're obese or not, is the use of these GLP-1 inhibitors, primarily semaglutide, Ozempic, or Mounjaro more recently. So as a clinician, what is your position on this? It is, we realize, being used as a, for non-diabetic patients, for people who want to lose weight, like a lifestyle thing. So what is your position as a clinician?
So first of all, let me thank Hindu Group and Ramya in particular, whom I know for last 2.5 decades, for giving me this opportunity to talk in front of you. The GLP-1 analogs, many of you must have heard the name Ozempic or Mounjaro, which has come to India recently. There's a lot of write-ups in the media, and lots of celebrities have taken it, and that's how they become more and more popular. They're not new drugs. So those who believe that there's something coming out of a magic trick or something for last 2 years, no, it is not. We have been using these drugs for 2 decades. Only thing is, there was some earlier generation of drugs. They did not have so much of weight loss. Now, current generation of drugs, they have tremendous weight loss potential. Now, there are problems with this kind of drugs also. So it's not so easy. It's not so easy that it's not a paracetamol, it's not aspirin. You go to the pharma shop and you say, give me this, and you pop up. No, it's nothing like that. Any of these patients, whether of obesity or diabetes, have to be screened properly who fits into these drugs. And we tell them about what is the potential weight loss, what are the problems, which patient cannot take it, and which patient can take it. And what is the expenditure? Now, expenditure, you think that this is something like a 50 rupees drug. It's not. And 1 month expenditure anywhere is 10 to 20,000 rupees. So these are expensive drugs, wonderful drugs for weight loss, up to 20% of the weight. So 100 kg person, 20% weight loss has been seen with Mounjaro. Around 13 to 15% weight loss with Ozempic. So we are using very frequently Ramya. But if you ask me, is this something which will solve obesity problem in India? It is not. No, no way. Obesity problem in India is to be tackled by diet, exercise, proper knowledge, starting at school. And this is only for a segment of people who can afford it, who are terribly obese, who cannot do exercise, are non-compliant to diet. These are the drugs reserved for these people.
Right. Now, Dr. Chandrakant, as a consultant on the national health policy, can you tell us about some effective interventions from the state or in the private sector that have, shown some kind of difference in the Indian population. Or if you want to choose any global population, that too would be fine.
Thank you very much. My apologies for my voice. I'm recovering from cold. Also, a special thanks to The Hindu, because it has always been kind to publish either my opinion pieces or inviting to this kind of forum. So thanks. Regarding what is happening in India, we need to understand the context. The context is that 5 to 7 decades ago, when India became independent, the biggest challenge was infectious diseases. Now, infectious diseases has a certain pattern. One, they affect individual. Second, around the same time, there were effective antibiotics. So if you have a medicine, you pop up that pill for a certain period of time and then you recover from it. So infectious diseases require a different approach. But India's healthcare system has always been designed, because that time those were the disease conditions which were prevalent. Non-communicable diseases, diabetes, hypertension, are relatively recent phenomena. We know around 1970s, the prevalence of diabetes in the country was around only 2%. And obesity, of course, less. So it has increased fivefold. So non-communicable disease is a new phenomena. India's health system is designed for communicable disease. But there is another key thing, which is that when we are talking about non-communicable diseases, the pattern is that if you go to any countryside, the course or treatment requires 5 days or 7 days, but even that is not completed by the people. They take medicine for 2 days or 3 days, and the day they start feeling okay, they stop medication. And this is very important learning for communicable diseases, what non-communicable diseases or chronic diseases. Because these require interventions for the long run, both individual level, health systems level, and in the diet and physical activity. So if you want to take control, prevent and control a non-communicable disease, we need to keep doing those interventions. Now, in an environmental system where we stop taking medication which is required for 5 days, in a 2.5 days, how can we expect citizen and community to follow intervention that modify your diet, do regular physical activity, and take a certain medication? So that is one of the key challenges. We have to start a new approach, a new thinking, and that's what India's National Health Policy, most recent one in 2017, talks about, that we have to redesign India's healthcare system, and both government and private sector, which is till at least a decade was focused upon curative and diagnostic. But in a newer setting, it requires preventive, promotive, curative, diagnostic, and rehabilitative approach. And final point here is that in a non-communicability, for example, if I'm having a common cold or then superimposed bacterial infection, I take antibiotic, I'll recover. But non-communicable disease, someone who is obese or who has a dyslipidemia, where lipid levels are deranged, it is very likely the entire family in that household would have something similar, because it is a common kitchen which is used for cooking food item. It's the same type of oil, same type of food habits which are followed. So if we have to tackle non-communicable disease, we need to work at multiple levels, and that's what India's National Health Policy already recognized. We need to work at individual level, we need to work at a family level, which means when someone is coming to a doctor for a treatment, that doctor has a moral responsibility to ask about the entire family members, advise him or her about the dietary pattern of physical activity. Now, that is easier said than done. And for that, we require a newer approach to healthcare system that has been indicated. But I know to put that into practice, it will take some more time. I stop here for this round of question. I'll be happy to elaborate.
Right. I think we should have another huddle session on rising antimicrobial resistance as well. But moving on and sticking to our Trojan horse for today, Dr. Preetha, the health-seeking behavior of women in general, and particularly in India, has been poor. So what is the experience of Apollo? Is it consistent with this trend? Has it improved over the years, particularly with reference to non-communicable diseases?
So let me just start by this. We did a bunch of research, because we wanted to know. And we found that drug research globally is more biased towards the male. and the Caucasian male. So 53% of whoever goes for trials is male, and it's just been traditional. I don't think it's anyone's fault and we shouldn't see it, unless it's targeted at the so-called women's disease, which is probably more gynecological than anything else. So this has been happening traditionally. When it comes to India, it's even more skewed, but there isn't enough research being done on the Asian genotype. You know, we're still taking drugs or being prescribed drugs in a lot of areas, which is targeted towards the Caucasian male. So if you rank it, we women, especially of Asian origin, Asian genomic type, are very low in that pecking order. So I'm just kind of parking it there. And I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. It's a very controversial subject, been discussed a lot of late. Having said that, you know, the Indian psyche, Indian woman's psyche is to be, you know, the good mother, sacrifice, do this, I work, but I look after my family, and my whole health is much less. And this mindset has to change. And every time I get a chance to speak to women, I tell them, listen, by not looking after your health, you're actually creating so much of chaos in the family, because if that one woman falls sick, then the husband goes out of whack, her parents, the children, everything goes for a six. So I think women by nature are being extremely irresponsible by not looking after their health. So whoever can tell these women, just go ahead, you know, take care of yourself. It doesn't take that much of time, and you've got a humongous number of gadgets, so many things, don't watch serials, just take care. I think it's a responsibility. And if we feel sorry for ourselves and say, I have so much to do, nobody's going to come and help. And I'm a very strong advocate of women jolly well take charge and look after their health. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this is my point of view.
Yeah, I guess it does. That's true. And also an enabling environment, both in the family and the community to, you know, for women to
I think you're as enabled or as empowered as you want to be. You know, it's in the mind. There is no need to just sit on the couch, eat rubbish, don't go for your checkup. And checkups are not expensive. It's maybe 1/10 of the cost of a nice sari you're wearing. So there's no point, you know, making excuses anymore.
Right. Dr. Anoop, we launched into semaglutide and Mounjaro, but I want to take a step back and look at the other innovations in diabetes care. For instance, the constant glucose monitoring, the insulin pump, personalized medicine that's you know, coming up in a big way in diabetes care. How have these interventions, these technological interventions, helped with taking care of patients?
Don't mind if I just add to what Dr. Reddy has said. The women, we have done a countrywide study on women long back under Indian Council of Medical Research. What we found was that the multiple health problems, most of them are cardiovascular risk factors, are much more in women in India than men. And there are waves of exacerbation of health in women. So with the childbirth, they don't lose weight. And then with the menopause, which many people don't know, that menopause is a great aggravator of cardiovascular health. And so from 45 to 50, 52, depending on when the menopause occurs, their cardiovascular risk goes up, their body fat goes up, redistributes around the abdomen and in the liver, and that creates a huge problem. And still, they're not going to take care of themselves. They will take care of their husband first, their father, etc., and then ignore themselves. So this has been specifically, we have sent these messages in the press for a long time after having done the research. As far as Ramya, your question is concerned, last 5 years we have seen huge number of advancements as far as diabetes and rest of the non-communicable diseases are concerned. So like new drugs you mentioned, and there are several other new drugs also for kidney disease, in diabetes, for heart failure, total different drug panel now than 5 years back. somebody suppose was frozen in time 5 years back and came back now, and he would find that the whole thing has changed. There's no more the same which we were taught in post-graduation and things like that. We have so many choices in the new drugs. Plus, we have the continuous glucose monitoring apparatus, which every day we put in several patients, and which gives us the highs and lows of blood sugar with drugs, with insulin and things like that, which we never knew earlier actually, that, well, here is a person who used to do only 2 sugars in a week or 10 days time, now has a 7 days, 24 hours profile. And we see that undetected, 3 o'clock in the night, there is a blood sugar drop. Patient didn't know. Patient has a history of heart attack. And this kind of sugar drop will further precipitate the heart attack. So we are much wiser with this kind of technology. We have longer sensors now, 6 months blood glucose monitoring which are coming, and we have longer acting insulin now, once a week insulin is coming. So many new things which have revolutionized the diabetes therapy as of today is totally revolutionized.
Yeah, thank you for that update. Dr. Chandrakant, if we look at taxation, so we are looking at taxing sugar and salt, which are said to be the 2 whites that are, greatly influence the onset of NCDs. What is your recommendation to governments on this question of taxation? I said 2 whites, but there are a number of things we can, what they call the sin tax. So is it possible that a taxation of that sort will actually improve the health of the nation?
So this is a very important societal discussion. That's high fat, salt, sugar food products are known to be unhealthy. They are precursor of many disease conditions. And of course, increasing taxation on high fat, salt, sugar items will help, because assumption is that it will reduce the consumption of those food items. And it should be done. But that is only one of the many interventions which can be done. At the same time, there has been a debate going on, and that's why I said in the beginning that sugar, we want to reduce the consumption of sugar, but we do not want to bring it to the zero. And then for many poor people, sugar is an important source of carbohydrate and household cooking. So we have to find a balance that how much tax should we put. It should not unnecessarily make those food items expensive and unaffordable for the poor people. So that's one intervention. But what I also want to bring to attention that there are known interventions and known things that, for example, the salt in India, the amount of salt, average amount of salt consumed by citizen is around 9 to 10 grams per person per day. The WHO recommended salt intake is 5 grams per person per day. So Indian population is consuming nearly twice or double amount of salt. And now we need to raise awareness about the reducing salt intake. That can be done. That cannot be done by increasing taxation, because salt is an integral part of this thing. And then household cooking contribute only 20% of the total salt intake of individual. What we need to bring attention that these high salt and high sugar items are unhealthy. So a better approach alongside the taxation on these is packaging related information on that, which indicate that this food item is high on salt, high on sugar. Anything which comes in the package is unhealthy and harmful. People would still consume it, but the awareness need to be raised about it. And Chile, as a country, Chile has done exactly the same, that they have raised awareness. The packaged food item and a warning system should be applied. So these are the approaches and interventions which should be done. Taxation is one approach, but we can do multiple approaches to reduce the salt intake, sugar intake, and fat item intake.
Right, thank you so much. Dr. Preetha, once again, interdisciplinary approaches are key to handling something like an NCD, which have multiple aspects built into. I mean, you can't just go for to check your blood sugar and everything else will be fine. Over a period of time, you need to do your eye checks. neuropathy, but ECG. So, do you think that the private sector is, in India particularly, is peculiarly placed in order to be able to handle this better with our, super specialty and multi-specialty units than maybe the state-sponsored public health?
So let me just give you a view. What we are doing, the high-end interventional checkups, not only us, but many private sector institutions are really fantastic. And they don't deal with one particular disease, but it is completely comprehensive. And the history, including family history, everything is done and taken. And then there's a whole genomic panel which is done. So you know your propensity for cancer, propensity for cardiac, so your risk quotient is done. And all this is done at 1/10 of the cost, which can be done, abroad. But Indians, we know how to do things quick and we know how to do things a bit better. But because of price, we're always value adding. So now there is a whole AI backing to this. So backed with AI, with all the parameters you get and the amount of data which people have got and have screened, I think the private sector in this year we will do about a 6 million. But if you aggregate the data of what everybody else, other institutions do, it's huge. And so we're much better off than anywhere else in the world in terms of comprehensive, complete MDT and the way it is done in India. We're far better than anyone else, and I'm very proud to say that. Now, the public sector here has started thinking about screening. So they work with the private sector. They come to us and they say, okay, can you screen this large population? So every day, at least 2,000 to 3,000 people, one institution like us does, but Narayan Hridayalaya does a lot, Fortis does, and everyone is doing. So if you aggregate the amount of penetration, it is huge. Is it enough? Not really. But the design is there. You can do a basic, you can take it multiple steps. On a scale of 10, you can go from 1 to 10. But the fact is that at least we're getting this. We're penetrating, we're talking to people. There are large vans and buses, and there are kiosks set up in panchayats and in smaller towns. So this is happening. And I really feel that as a country, we're way ahead of many developed nations in the terms which, we penetrate. Smaller countries, Norway and Sweden, do a phenomenal job. There are others which are doing, I don't know enough about what China is doing to even comment, but I think that India has done phenomenally well over the past 10 years on prevention and on checking up and scaling.
Right, thank you so much. Dr. Anoop, so this one thing that everyone reads about is fads. So there are health fads, suddenly intermittent fasting is, top of my Instagram algo. Sometimes it's, it's the high protein diet. Some studies say if you have this quantity of wine, it's good for heart health. There are studies that say, you yourself have done studies on almonds being good for. There are studies on cashews sometimes, that I've read about. So how do you evaluate these varying fads? I mean, what place do you put them in as a clinician?
Excellent question. With the barrage of studies which have come in on the diet itself, it's very difficult to sometimes make up one's mind what is good and what is bad. But having worked in this area for more than 2 decades, and we are at the forefront of diet research in South Asia at this point of time, I have come to know a little bit more about this, and what usually I tell the patient, I say, don't go for any high-fat diet. If you are on gluten-free diet for no reason, please stop it. If you are on keto diet for more than 3 months, please stop it. There is no use of intermittent fasting. If you do a calorie restrictive, usual diet, decrease 10 to 15% of the calorie, take off a couple of things, add a couple of things, make the protein a little bit high, and you'll have beautiful diet, which will you lose weight, your body fat will decrease, your liver will become better, your kidney will benefit, your heart will benefit. And there have been recent reports of a long follow-up of people who have been on ketogenic diet, that it actually increases heart risk. So short while, okay. Non-diabetic people, okay, fine. Long term, none. Totally forbidden. Those who are on gluten-free diet, for some fad, because usually these days, the fad is, if you go to a dietitian who say, oh, you're on a wheat diet. Well, we have been on wheat diet for centuries. What is wrong with that? Then don't take wheat, take gluten. You're not gluten sensitive. You're not a patient of celiac disease. Why should you take gluten? And then you go and look at the market, see the various products of gluten, and they are 3 times as much price with no added benefit. So all these are, we are living in a country where low-cost solutions are needed. And I have seen public sector, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, I have seen private sector, and I go for low-cost solutions. And we have devised a vegetarian low-cost diet, similar to Atkins diet, which are half the price of a keto diet. And we have evidence for that. That kind of evidence is needed, Ramya, for our country. We have to make our own schedule of what should be our diet. And for example, what I eat in North, you cannot eat the same diet. What somebody eats in Arunachal Pradesh, I cannot eat it. So every region must have tailored diet which fits the pocket and which is evidence-based. Unfortunately, Ramya, very few people in this country are working on the diet. Our group is one, Mohan's group is another, and a couple of more. That's all. Versus the number of people who are working in diet in the Western countries, and they have defined, they have 20 years follow-up, 15 years follow-up. We don't have that. That kind of thing, that kind of research is needed for Indian people. That is what ICMR should actually focus on. That's what Health Ministry should focus on. Our diets and what kind of exercise befits our schedule. That should be tailored to our population. Then we will have solution for diabetes. Then we will have solution for cancer. So we will have a solution for cardiovascular disease. Because everything stems from excess fat in the body. All these non-communicable diseases.
Right, thank you so much. Dr. Chandrakant, I'm coming to you now, and I'm going to pick up from what Dr. Preetha Reddy said initially. It's this whole concept of mental health. We need to take care of the mental health of patients. Increasing number of cases of depression, suicide numbers are also climbing. While these might be extremes, there is no doubt that this country needs a lot more attention on mental health. How do we evolve low-cost models that will, travel the length and breadth of this country and provide this?
So, mental health challenge in India is well documented. 2015-16 National Mental Health Survey indicated that 1 in every 8th Indian, like 12% of India's population has some form of mental health issue, and 2% of India's population has a severe mental illness in need of urgent treatment. However, we know that mental health infrastructure is weak, but also mental health challenges have the same problem which any other non-communicable disease. For example, if we have a diabetes or hypertension, we can go to a doctor and openly talk about it. But when it comes to mental health, people try to not to go to a formal provider or delay their care seeking. So we need to remove that stigma from individuals' perspective, but from health system, a healthcare provider's perspective. It should be a routine practice to ask certain questions related to mental health aspect. And I think that will be a good beginning. Be it mental health or non-communicable disease, we need to empower citizens. We need to tell that the way any physical health condition can be treated and should be treated, and you need to consult a provider. Similar way, mental health is a condition which can be treated. And there are medications available, effective medications available, which can be addressed. But there is a mind block from both health systems perspective or providers perspective or individual perspective that need to be addressed. Here I would like to say and utilize this public forum that in each of these conditions we should have a societal dialogue. We should talk about mental health openly, which has happened in the last decade, but it has not happened at the health system level where healthcare provider proactively addressing those concerns and trying to answer those questions. I would take another 30 seconds to share two things which I think this is the right forum. For example, in my clinical practice, when I ask people, what is your optimal weight? And this appears very innocuous question, but people do not know what should be their ideal weight, when ideal or optimal weight. When they don't know what should be their weight, how would they know whether they are overweight or obese? So broader formula, and there are multiple things, is that your height in centimeter minus 100 for male. 170 centimeter male should have a 70 kg optimal weight. If it's like a 10% higher than that, it definitely you need to do something. But for female, height in centimeter minus 105 is the optimal weight. So we need to bring those kind of understanding in the people. Second point is that the free sugar, we do not want all the carbohydrate to be cut down from the diet. Complex carbohydrate is what you need. Carbohydrate is a major source of energy, but complex, simple carbohydrate, free sugar should be 25 gram to 35 gram per person per day. And we need to reduce that free sugar. So these are the things. And then one intervention which some of the NGOs did, the salt consumption I talked earlier. Salt consumption is very high in Indian household and Indian restaurants. One of the NGO initiatives is that they did a proactive approach, going to the restaurants in a particular Chennai city, and said they remove the salt shaker from the restaurant table. And that simple intervention can help. If someone is asking you, of course, provide salt shaker, but if it is not on the table, people are less likely to use salt, and that will reduce salt. So there are interventions which can address non-communicable diseases, and it requires multiple approaches. And of course, today is not enough time for that.
Right, it says time's up. Yes, so we can open the floor. I mean, I have many questions, but I think it's time to open the floor for questions. Mr. Ravi. Here.
What is the role of public recreational facilities, parks and playgrounds in tackling diseases like obesity, diabetes or cardiovascular disease?
I think that's a dream, Ravi. I wish we had. The newer cities are thinking about it, they're planning. But we know that with real estate development, whatever is there is also kind of getting lost. And we don't, there's not enough physical activity. So it's work to be done. It's public policy, town planning, all that has to fall into place. But right now, I would think that we have a big worry on hand.
Any other questions?
Just based on that, I just wanted to drive home a point that India's demographic advantage, we talk about the young, we talk about Gen Z, and we say all this, could become its greatest liability if the young people are not channeled properly. Whether it's the eating habits or physical habits or mental habits, what is right now looked at as a huge positive could become a biggest problem. And to me, that's the Trojan horse.
Right. Any other questions? Yeah, the gentleman there. In the blue.
Hello. We are having a very interesting discussion. I think it's very useful for all of us, generally because it's related to health subject. And particularly, I want to know that, very briefly I would put it, it is widely believed that the entire world, if you see globally, very objectively, I'm just asking this question, there is the medical industry, particularly it is related to diabetics, and particularly the medical lobby or diabetic lobby, they are consisting of the entire medical industry people. They are reduced the diabetic parameters lower so that more people will come under the diabetic domain in order to increase the sale of their drugs, diabetic drugs. And it's also said the diabetic statistics are there. Around just to benefit about 2 to 3 million people belonging to the medical industry, about 20% of the total population of the entire world, which is about 1.5 to 2 billion people, they are subjected to unnecessary drug imposition on them, though all of them are not required to take the medicine. This, whether is it true? If it is true, it's not ethical.
I'll answer your question, sir.
Yeah.
There is no medical lobby. It is all research, and whatever the cutoffs which have been made are not made now. They were made 20 years back by WHO and American Diabetic Association based on the research that a particular level of sugar, if one goes beyond that, then two things occur. One is eye problem starts occurring. So retinopathy starts occurring and cardiovascular disease starts occurring. So they say that this is the best level of sugar, and it has not changed over last 20 years. Those who say that they keep on changing, does not keep on changing. So that is number one. Number two, that every diabetic does not need a drug therapy, sir. And if you are a pre-diabetic or just a borderline diabetic, you need just diet and exercise and you can reverse your diabetes. That is the advantage of this. That if there is a level that we know and you go beyond a level with an enhanced diet and exercise, you can return back to normal. So it is not a drug lobby all the time. So it's not drug used all the time, sir. It is the lifestyle which needs to be changed. And if you lose even in a florid diabetes, if you lose 15 kg of weight, if you are overweight and you lose 15 kg of weight, you can reverse diabetes clearly. By diet alone, sir. This is the study, direct study, which was published and is a worldwide phenomenon now, worldwide known now, and we are doing research on this, that the community, in England, community were given very low calorie diet for 8 weeks, 800 calorie diet. Some of them lost 5 to 6 kg within 2 months' time. Then their calorie was increased to 1200 because it's not sustainable. And 6 months, they lost 10 kg. Those who lost 15 kg reversed their diabetes, and 15% of those are without diabetes 5 years henceforth. That was 5 years back. That is the beauty of science, sir. And that is the beauty of cutoff, sir. So it is wrong to say it is lobby. It is wrong to say it is all drugs.
Yes, one more question.
Ma'am, I'm here.
Just a minute.
This is for the panel. What is your opinion on traditional medicine versus modern medicine in respect of diabetics and also coronavirus? Because I find Siddha medicine has got Siddha form of medicine has got curative solution for coronavirus. I know a drug called Brahmananda Bhairavam, and WHO keeps on saying that there is no drug which can kill coronavirus. And for diabetics, we have in traditional medicine, we have different type of bodies like Kapha, Pitta, and 3 types of bodies. But modern medicine speaks about only uniform type of bodies, and they prescribe medicine for all the bodies together. There is no classification of different type of bodies. Please kindly give me the solution. Or, because I am talking on behalf of traditional medicine, I don't practice medicine, but I use traditional medicine like Ayurveda and Siddha.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll have all of you respond, Dr. Chandrakant, and then Dr.
Well,
Anoop.
it depends upon how you break that traditional medicine and traditional practices. If you talk about healthy diet, physical activity, they are part of the traditional practices. So they, of course, Dr. Misra elaborated about that, how they can they can help in reversal of diabetes or many other health conditions. So traditional practices many of those are time tested and proven they are useful. As far as the word use of traditional medicine, I'm not an expert on that area, but what I broadly know through my work and research, that they are useful in a long-term preventive approaches. But when it comes to a curative approach, when it comes to treat a condition, the current science-based medicine is better approach in my opinion.
I totally agree with what Dr. Lahariya said. You see, I have a great respect for our traditions and traditional medicine. But if you look at the plethora of things, then some of the things can very well fit in with the scientific principles. For example, yoga is coming up. Yoga has been proven also to some extent. It does not surpass the aerobic physical activity, but it is there. It is somewhere there. It is being accepted now. So it is our traditional medicine. As far as dietary principles are concerned, I am all for frugal Indian ancient diets, which is part of our traditional medicine also. But as rightly said by Dr. Lahariya, we tested some of the so-called anti-diabetic compound. You know, I would name a company which sponsored that study was Maharshi Ayur, one of the top companies. And when I was on All India Institute of Medical Sciences, but I did not publish those data because there was hardly there to publish the data. 5 to 7% decrease in the blood sugar over 6 months using these drugs, and this was a randomized controlled trial. So if it is just a 5%, 7%, it is not a drug that I will aspire for if a patient has 250, 300 blood sugar. But as rightly said, if it's not toxic, so that is another thing. Please, toxicity of Ayurvedic drugs, heavy metals and so on. If it's not toxic, then maybe those ingredients are okay for prevention or slight when pre-diabetes is there. But I would say to my patient who are taking some bhasma, churan and this and that, I say, why don't you take whatever is there naturally? So if you take the anti-diabetic so-called traditional medication, they have methi, they have amla, they have jamun, they have karela. And in different combinations. And these can be done very well. Sabji banaiye aap, take amla every day, I tell my patient. So those, that becomes a part of our tradition, and we are not taking recourse to artificial medicine of doubtful quality, which has been made by 3 or 4 people. I don't want to do that.
I think, yeah, the point here is that we should not confuse the traditional practices and term them as medicine.
Right. Do you want to chime in?
No, I just feel of late that we can't really write off too much, and everything must be backed with clinical trials, with data. Yeah, I think that is very important. It's a given. Personally, we have invested into an Ayurvedic company of late called Ayurved, which is from Bangalore. And the way they are writing up the clinical data of patients, it's sometimes far better than what our allopathic centers and hospitals are doing. So there's a big learning there that they can actually do it extremely well. What may be a good thing to do is not to think about integrative medicine, which means you need the power of diagnostics, which now, healthcare providers, medicine, so-called medicine healthcare has. But if you could use the diagnostics and if you could have proper clinical trials on some of the drugs which they're talking about, like LIB52 is taken by everyone. And it started off as an Ayurvedic drug. It's doing extremely well. And there's so much of data which has gone into studying LIB52, by the way. So having said that, I would say we will not write it off, but we will put it through the lens of clinical trials, of science, of data, and think of a situation where we can integrate both. If we could use our diagnostics, if we could use, sometimes for cancer, we've seen that, in palliative care situations, the immunotherapy drugs and the chemotherapy really causes a lot of problems and issues. And some Ayurvedic solutions have actually helped. So that's why I said, personally, I don't think we can write it off. And as an institution, we really respect and believe in what it's doing. But we need to give the best, which is data and science backed. And the patience and the consistent to do that today is very important.
Right, thank you. And I think with that, positing of science at the center of our universe,